Welcome to the For Real Though Show, the podcast with a purpose for the people. I am your host, Christopher Keith. We're brought to you by Queso. What? You know, the best gourmet quesos in the Midwest. We'll tell you more about that later. Hope all is well with everyone. You had a good Labor Day and all that good stuff. Today, we're going to talk about something that I think is important, and it is about receiving and giving criticism. Yes, receiving and giving criticism. So, like don't none of us like to hear criticism, but the fact of the matter is we're going to hear it and we're going to give it, right? And so the reason why this subject came up, I was umpiring and kind of ear hustling while I was behind the plate. And so behind the plate, they're like people behind the fence who have chairs and stuff, and they're sitting down watching the game, talking to people. And so I was kind of ear hustling, and this young lady was talking to like her mom or relative friend or whatever, and she was talking about how her coach was just giving her the blues. And she's like, I remember she's like, I had 6 RBIs, I had 4 hits, but he still talked to me and singled me out, saying that I wasn't doing enough and blah, 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 blah. And so, she was kind of frustrated about it. And I kind of felt bad for her. But I thought about, yeah, I mean, this could be a jerk of a coach, or it could be the type of thing where a person knows that you're excellent, so they want to get the best out of you. And I give you an example of that. Like when my sons were growing up specifically, my daughters were always like really good at school. But when I talked to my sons about school, I remember telling them, like, I don't care if you get an A, a B, or whatever, right? That would never matter to me. What matters to me is if you cheated yourself and you can get A's, you can get A's and still give a half-assed effort, if you will, right? Or you can get a D and you busted your ass for that D. That happened to happen to me. When I was in college, I was taking this uh political philosophy class. Whatever class it was, it had to do with a lot with like Hamlet and Socrates. There was a lot of stuff like that. So the language was beyond me because it was talking in that Shakespearean type of verbiage, and it was just really difficult for me to grasp. Well, I got a D out of that class, and let me tell you, I was proud as hell of myself for getting that D. But because hell, I earned it and I passed. That was the most important thing. But so the issue is like what kind of effort did you do? Were you true to yourself, And so I always told my sons, if you're true to yourself, and you gave your best effort, first of all, within the first week of, school is just starting now. So I would always tell them, hey, within the first week, you should know what it takes to get an A out of this class. Because the teacher should be able to tell you, whether it's on the syllabus or whatever. Normally, a teacher, a professor, or whatever is going to tell you, hey, this is what's expected out of this class to be successful. So you should know. And if you don't know, you should ask them if you don't know within a week. But again, that being said, if you can get an A and kind of piss off the thing, or you can get a B or a C and you really busted your behind, or an A and you really busted your behind. And if you did, either way, the issue is the process, and you didn't cheat yourself out of the process, right? Um, and that's the issue. So that's where I would take take with them. And so maybe this coach was talking about the process. Maybe she hit all those balls, but she wasn't really hustling. Maybe on defense, she didn't give it her best. Maybe on defense, she wasn't a good communicator. So it could have been some of those things too. I don't know. But after I got through ear hustling, I had a little time between innings, here and there. And so I walked over and I said something to her. I introduced myself and to her and the parent person she was talking to. And I said, yeah, criticism can be difficult, but I asked her about, I went really old school on her. She's just a kid. I'm out here telling her about Greg Popovich and Tim Duncan. So for those who don't know, Greg Popovich used to be the coach of the San Antonio Spurs. This will be the first year that he's not because he had some health problems, so he had to retire from coaching, blah, blah, blah. He's still going to be with the organization, besides the point. Well, anyway, so Tim Duncan is a Hall of Fame forward out of Wake Forest. Great career, 5 championships, blah, blah, blah. Well, when he came to the Spurs Everyone knew he was the best player. Everyone knew, like even his teammates knew. If they didn't know, they knew after the first 2 weeks of training camp. And Tim's a very mild-mannered guy. He's got fire, because so he's very competitive, but he's not one like he ain't like Kevin Garnett finna cuss you out and all that kind of stuff on an outward tip. You know what I'm saying? Tim is more of a silent killer, if you will. So, but with him being the best player, Popovich is trying to establish a culture. So he has a conversation with Tim, and he's like, Tim, I need your help. You know, in order for me to get all these guys together, I'm going to be getting on your behind the most. You know what I mean? So in practice, film study or whatever, even if it ain't your fault, I'm probably going to say it's your fault. And, I'm going to talk my stuff. And when I get through talking my stuff, I just want you to take it, with a good attitude. Because if you take it, being the best player on this team, everybody else going to have to take it too. And so Tim agreed to do that. And thus, they ended up having really like a nice little dynasty, if you will. So I explained it to her, and I was like, so, you really kind of want to know if you don't know why he's criticizing you or what he says you could do more of, then just ask him to be very specific, right? And then their way now it's a learning opportunity for you as opposed to somebody just telling you something. So that's that story. So my history with criticism. I always like talked about myself first. Well, it just kind of varies. It varies. Because one thing I can't stand is the joker that you can't tell nothing to, right? And I have never been that person. When I will never be the person that you can't talk to, that you can't tell me nothing, right? And I remember when I was working at this payroll company years ago, and I really liked the job. It was a really difficult learning curve. But I started getting really good at it to the point where, I was handling our biggest accounts, like Hunter Douglas, Kmart at the time when Kmart was there, Toys R Us. So I had the national account. So I had really, kind of grown through the ranks, in terms of my skill set and my ability to satisfy, clients. And so there would be times when something would happen where something didn't go right or somebody questioned something and my boss would have to tell me about it or he would send me an email and ask me what happened and then I'd do some research and study and find out well it may be something that I didn't even have nothing to do with me so I would send him something back and so we were sitting down talking one day in his office and he joked it might have been during one of my reviews but he joked and he was like yeah, boy, cuz you don't like nobody to criticize your work, buddy. And I thought about that, and it was true. It was true. I did like it, but it wasn't because of my pride and ego or arrogance. It was because normally, unless I miss something mentally, which could happen, I do exactly what the client asks me to do. Like, I don't add nothing, I don't take nothing away. If it's something I should suggest because they might not be thinking about it, I would do that. But otherwise, I would just do what they asked me to do. And I really, really, really always been the kind of person who cares very deeply about my job performance. That's just for me personally, right? That's just an ethic that I have. No one had to train me on wanting to be excellent at what I do. So therefore, yeah, I would take it personally, like, okay, what's wrong with it? You know what I mean? But if the criticism is valid, and if I miss something, I'm also the first person to be like, "Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. My apologies." I watch out for that. Won't happen again. Whatever the case may be. The job I have now, like things are always changing. And there are certain things I miss, certain things that I missed that didn't have nothing to do with me, certain things that I missed that just a slip of the brain. I forgot to check this area before I requested this thing that we already have, for instance, right? So, and when that happens, I'm never pissed off about it. If anything, I'm thankful. I'm like, man, thanks for telling me, good reminder, blah, blah. So I've never been that guy. But at the same time, yeah, when it comes to like say refereeing, that that's a that's a good that's a good thing to have examples on because you're always under constant criticism, right? And uh and the thing about it is I've always said there's a way to work a referee, right? Because we're human. I don't care. You can have a bubbly personality, or you can be like some of these referees who I know who are they're just going to do the job and don't talk to me, and none of the kids talk to me. You players don't talk to me. I'm just calling this game straight up, straight down, right? Well, either way, we're all human. And if you know a person, then you know that there's a way you can talk to them, that can get you, could get you maybe some results down the line that you're looking for, or at least an ear, you know. And if you know the person, and if you're true to yourself, you could you can get it, you can convince a person of some things, maybe, right? You can get them to listen to you. I remember I used to hear stories about Michael Jordan, how he would say things to the referee, and then one of the things he would say is, man, that was really close. Boy, that was really close to a foul. I think he fouled me. I really do. So he wasn't just calling a dude a butthole, you know what I mean? He would just tell him, that was just really close. Hey, keep an eye on that for me. Keep an eye on that for me, and that's the best way to do it. Um, I remember, like, even as I referee now, like, I'm really horrible with names. So if I don't know a person, I may introduce myself. Hey, I'm Christopher. They say they coach Mason or whatever. Hell, 2 seconds later after they meet, I'm like, what do you say his name is? Like, so that's just a really bad thing with me. But a lot of coaches know your name. So they'd be like, hey, Christopher, what'd you see over there? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm telling you, that instant recognition and personableness, if you will, makes it easier next time you want to question something, or critique something, right? So uh we deal with that, right? In relationships, right? If you're in a relationship with somebody, whether it's friendship, romantic, work related, or whatever, right? Teammates, it's more so. I think criticism, there's always a place for it if you want to get better, but it's also goes into the way you criticize, right? Like I said, man, woman, a child, friend, or whatever. And the way I deal with it, I kind of take it based on what the crime is, if you will, right? I'll explain more about that. Um, but so that's my history. My history is I'm cool, you know, I'm cool with being criticized. We go to, I'm gonna get into this in a second, but like I remember going to, well, we work with officials all the time, right? So uh I had an issue the other day. Now, if you know me, well, you don't you if you know me, you may not know me in this sense. Like when I'm a part of a team, I have a football crew, and we work together every Friday night. And with few exceptions, unless there's a substitution, I'm with the same guys all the time. And so therefore we develop a rapport, relationship, hopefully a rhythm, to where we see enough things together, and then we start picking up on each other's nuances, this and the other. Well, what I mentioned in this brother's name, this one brother on my crew, we wear headpieces and stuff so we can communicate through walkie-talkie earpieces and stuff like that. But ever since we've gotten them, this one crew, and I mean we've had them for like 4 years now. So, but ever since this might be the fifth, but ever since we got him, this one crew member, you be talking to him and he don't answer. So, and I'd be like, hey, beep, I need this, I need this, I need a ball, blah, blah, I need a ball from your sideline or whatever, and this person just be standing there looking like. And so we had our first game last week, and we now have a nice little pregame, this and the other. We ready to go out there and conquer the world, be the best officiating crew in the state of Ohio and the whole nine. So something happened. Well, okay, so I'll just explain what it was. So the first thing was the ball boy. It's early in the season, but the ball boy didn't have a ball under the goalpost when somebody scored a touchdown. Now it's my job as the back judge after the score, after the score of the try, to retrieve a ball for the kicker, run back around to the 40-yard line where the team that scored is going to kick the ball at. And so one person's ball boy on one of my sidelines didn't have the ball. So now I'm running around here. We got to get the game going. We got like 60 seconds to get this game back going. I don't have a ball to give to the kicker. So hey, I need a ball. Need a ball for the kicker. So I'm steady running around. I ain't got the ball, no problem. All I gotta do is communicate to this person that we need a football to get this game going. I'm steady doing it, steady talking, steady talking. Everybody else hear me. Just one person don't say nothing. So the game gets a little delayed because now I'm standing in the middle of the field with 11 football players waiting to kick off. And now the kicker and everybody else is like, we need a ball. We need a ball. So, so that was one thing. And then later on, like say, I'm a back judge. So I'm like the guy that's way in the back. So like say for instance, if a ball is passed, all the way down the field, but it's dropped, well, you don't want to have to retrieve that ball and bring it all the way back 30, 40, 50 yards, right? You just get another ball from the sideline. So I'm like, beep, we need a ball, need a ball, need a ball, because the ball went way down there. I'm running back and getting back in position. We need a ball. And he's just like, just standing there on the sideline. So this will be important when we talk about how you criticize. So me and this particular person, we've gotten into it a few times in our careers. And it's always me that's got something to say, by the way. It's always me that's got something to say. But it'd be for little stuff like this. So at halftime, you know, I admit I was heated because I'm like, I'm not gonna be trying to talk to this person all season when they just not freaking listening on this headset. As a matter of fact, I remember one time, I remember him saying in jest that he kind of disconnects his earpiece off so he doesn't hear us. So I heard him say that in jest, and I remember that. He probably don't know that I remember that. But anyway, beside the point. So at halftime, I wait till I cool down a little bit, give me something to drink. And I said, okay, fellas, this is what I have. It's all, everybody talking about how we're evaluating our first half, what we need to do second half. I said, so and so, I said, we had two instances tonight where we tried to communicate with you, but I don't know what's up with the earpiece or whatever, but you didn't respond back. And so I said, so he said something to the effect of he can't hear, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, well, if you can't hear it through it, you just might not, there's no sense in you even taking this walkie-talkie out. Don't take the earpiece out if you can't hear it. And what I said was, instead of me just grinding into him like I normally would have, I said, now all the other guys are here. Guys, do you agree? Am I right or am I wrong that every year we have this same issue with this walkie-talkie and this brother not listening or talking or communicating? And so unfortunately, all of them just kind of sat there looking stone faced. But like normally, trust me, like back in the day, this is what I'm learning about criticism. So back in the day, I'd have just fired it to him, hey man, answer the damn thing. You know what I'm saying? That's what I was saying. you know, uh, but I was like, I was trying to, I was changing my strategy up, and I just tried to get confirmation from everybody else. I'm like, I'm not mad, I'm not angry now. I'm just trying to be productive going forward. What can we do about this earpiece situation? You know. So uh, he was offended. He was offended. He said a couple smart remarks, something about everybody uh maybe donating to him so he can buy a new headset, you know, that kind of stuff. And he said something to the effect of, well, y'all don't be hearing me, which is impossible because he never says anything on it. So we can't, ain't nothing for to hear. It was just like he was weaseling out of it. But I think eventually he kind of we'll see what happens next time we have a game. Uh But I was just anyway. I'm not going. I'm sorry, I'm getting caught up. But anyway, so the point about the criticism is, I think later on he responded in a way that made it seem as if, okay, I'm gonna have to upgrade my earpiece. So it could either be that, or it could be that he wasn't listening. He wasn't gonna sit there and say, you know what, I just be ignoring y'all, or I kind of take it out my ear so I don't hear you, or I really don't give a damn about what y'all be saying anyway. Like he didn't really want to say that, so he said something to the effect of, next week I'm gonna order something on Amazon and I get another one. Okay, cool, 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 cool. So, uh, that's that goes into again how you criticize. You got to know like what your purpose is in criticizing. You know what I'm saying? Like this criticism was not personal. It was so we can have a productive game on this field. And I don't want something to happen to where we need to communicate as something of a vital issue and we can't communicate simply because the person's not paying attention or whatever. So that's what I mean by, appropriateness about, hey, based on the crime, you know what I'm saying? This is something I should get into. Kind of like with my kids, right? When my kids were growing up, I never raised them as if they were all the same. I wasn't going to be, one one of my children were like, "Hey, if you just look at them wrong and you look like you disappointed, that was going to get her." One son was like, he was kind of a pleaser. He wanted to please his family and everything. So if you gave him approval and stuff and showed him you was encouraging him while also peeping for his BS, because he had some BS in there. If you let him know you knew about his BS, but you still loved him and you was on his side, then that made him function. Another son was like, "Hey man, you got to get in his face, be like, man, I said yada 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 yada," because that's the only way he was gonna get it. Because you couldn't go to him like that. If you went to him like that, he was gonna be like, okay, you know what I'm saying? So even though I wasn't mad, the times when I would get on him, I would act like I was because I knew that was where he'd get the message. Uh, so here's the thing about receiving, criticism, because again, no one likes to receive it, right? We can admit that. Well, when I say no one likes, it seldom feels good, right? Because as humans, we want to hear about how good of a job we did. Hey, that's a good job out there, buddy. It's gratifying, when somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, you did good. Hey, you guys were the best umpires we've had all year." I can't tell you how many times I heard that. I love the way you interact with the kids. I love the way especially with the younger kids, you kind of teach them the game. You don't just be by letter of the law. You ain't the law of Moses and nothing. You know what I'm saying? You sprinkle a little Jesus, a little grace in there. With excuse me to the people out there who thinks that empathy is a sin. I digress. Anyway, but when it comes to criticism, because again, I think if we have the right people around us, like that's all the coaches does, like encourage and criticize, right? Encourage and criticize. What a pastor does, encourage and criticize. What a critical thinker does, encourage and criticize. That's what I do in terms of politics, things I see going on around me, right? I got something good to say, I got something bad to say. Like those are all balanced, right? But when it comes to receiving criticism, here's my suggestion. First of all, ask yourself, is it possible that it could be true? Could it be true? I've had coaches tell me, hey, good game, Blue. I think you missed this one call, blah, 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 blah. Hell, they could be right. You know what I mean? Uh, it's possible. And if I missed it, I missed it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to take offense to that. Uh, that's not the same as you suck, or something like that. But you should ask yourself, hey, is it possible that it may be true? Is it true? Especially sometimes we know damn well it's true. As soon as they said it, we know it was true. Yep, that was you. You said this, you did this. You was funny, you was snotty, you was sassy, you was wrong, and you was just wrong. You just need to take it. That's one thing. If it's true, you need to consider that. Uh, Sometimes your system has to be in order, you know. Uh, Sometimes, and again, this is receiving criticism. Back in the day, we used to do these things when I was a part of this basketball association in St. Charles, Missouri, and we would do these things called jamborees. And jamboree is basically high school teams or junior high, whatever, high school teams in our case, practicing, in like an open run against other high school teams. So it's unofficial. They're not really wearing uniforms. They're really kind of wearing their practice gear. They getting a run in to work on their stuff with their coaches. And then we as officials are working on ourselves, our craft, get in right positions, this and the other. And so we would have these clinicians, if you will, who would evaluate us. Now, at this time, I was happened to be on the board of this organization. And one of the things I suggested as a board member was, uh, you know, is that we should have a uniform way of critiquing officials. And what I mean by that is, so like I said, we got six courts in the building, right? We might have six courts in the gym. So you got, you know, several officials rotating every hour, or every 40 minutes or whatever. And then you got, for whatever six courts, you might have three clinicians or evaluators on each court. So now you got like 18 guys or girls, you know what I'm saying, who would all have in their head what they were looking at. And so what would end up happening was I could be working and doing something a certain way because this clinician said this at 5:30 is, yeah, Chris, I need you to come over here. When that play, it's gonna come right at you, get a wide angle, boom, boom, boom. You'll see it much better. Okay, cool, thanks. And then you do that exact same thing on another court. They'd be like, why are you doing that? Don't do that. And that stuff, I can tell you, that stuff got frustrating. So I said, you know what? We don't have to try to master all to be all. What we can do, we can just have a set of things that we're going to work on. So 2023 or whatever, 2018, whatever the year was back then. Hey man, just have five things we're going to work on. We're going to evaluate your own hustle, positioning, communication, with the table as well as your partners, and something like that, right? Rotations, how you rotate. And that way everybody knows this is what we're working on, right? You don't just have a bunch of people out here just kind of, ghosted it on their own, because mind you, unless you work in summer basketball, these jamborees happen like usually in summertime, usually happen like in June or July, something like that. So school's not in, uh, and nobody worked basketball for like 2 or 3 months. And so, we just all out here on our own. So now we getting this criticism from people, you know, telling us something that the other court told you that was total opposite. Now, you want to talk about frustrating. That's frustrating as hell. So anyway, I made the suggestion, and the bozo at the top of this uh organization didn't want to do that. I don't know why he didn't want to do it. Maybe he thought it was too much work. Maybe because he hadn't thought of the idea his damn self. But I tried to relate that, hey man, you got a lot of frustrated officials out here because there are no real, like you go out there, you just reffing. You know what I'm saying? There are no points of emphasis. There are no things like even we did football. One of the things I said, I'm telling myself, when there's a penalty, get the number. Get the number. Don't forget to get the number. Because I can see a pass interference, be like, okay, flag. And then I'm telling my referee, hey, defensive pass interference, right? And so the other coach might be like, what's the number? Who did it? Who did it? You know, I'd have turned away now. I don't even know. I just got that out of my mind. So I'm telling myself a point of emphasis for that game. Hey, this year I'm going to work on getting the numbers of the people who commit the penalties, right? So I was trying to explain to him this particular philosophy that if you got all the clinicians and all the officials working on the same 4 to 5 principles, right? Then you know what you're expected to emphasize in your mind and work on. Okay, I'm going to be really good at communication. I'm going to make sure I'm hustling always. I'm going to get into good position. I'm going to make sure we're rotating when we got weak side ball help or the strong side ball goes to the other side, whatever, 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 right? It gives everybody the same thing, and then everybody's judged on the same thing. Everybody might not see it the exact same way or interpret the exact same way, but at least we got some semblance of synchronicity here, right? Well, anyway, they didn't want to do it, and so therefore that experience that year, as well as after that, I was gone. I moved, but when we went through that jamboree experience, trust me, I know because I was there. Not only I, but there was a hell of a lot of officials who were very, very frustrated because they felt like cats was just picking on them just so they could have some crappy stuff to say, right? But even in that situation, even in that situation, there's a way to deal with that. And the way that I dealt with it and the way a lot of other people deal with it, this is when I mentor people, this is what I tell them. Somebody give you some crappy advice, you know, or you feel like they're being unfair or don't know what the hell they're talking about. Just say thank you. It's pretty simple. Just look at him and say, okay, hey, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Because what that does is, number one, it eliminates some unnecessary ass arguments because a lot of people who are clinicians or in charge, if you will, a lot of them aren't necessarily the most humble people. Some of them are, but some of them think that they're in their position just to tell you what to do. They're not really there to help you. Uh, and some are really there to help. But again, if you don't have a if you don't have the right person, you're still gonna have to deal with them, right? They may have a higher level of position in the organization, which could decide your fate, right, going forward. So you ain't got to cuss them out. You can just say thank you, roll with it, say thank you. So because I had been in the organization long enough, I was kind of past that point. And I knew all these jokers. You know what I'm saying? I know what they can do. I know what they can't do. I know who's out here with this position, but can't worth ruffle for damn. You know what I'm saying? I know, and I know who's really cold, who may not be getting any eyes on them, right? I know because I've been around and I pay attention. Okay. So in receiving criticism, you have to ask yourself, is it true again? You have to consider the source. Uh, you definitely have to consider the intent, what you think the intent may or may not be, but then you got to have a solution. So either you're going to learn from it because the information was sound, or you think it's a bunch of bull crap, but you just say thank you and smile. And then that just, the very least, it makes you look good, right? Now, when it comes to giving criticism, I would say, number one, what is your purpose of the criticism? Is it because you want to make things better? Do you really see something? Should it be said? Is it something really necessary to be said? Um, is it productive? Is your attitude right? Because always questioning your motives is just one of the greatest things you can do as an individual. Is to always question your motives because I know some of us think we sweet Polly purebred, but we ain't. And we all can get attitudes. I can get attitude. I can feel a certain type of way about a person. There's several people I feel a certain type of way about. Excuse me. Even in my industry of refereeing, certain people are. I listed like I'd never work with that person, you know what I'm saying? And I got my reasons, but most of it has to do with again, you can't tell them nothing, right? They don't want to grow, they're there just for the money. They ain't really trying to be about that business, And so for their reasons, I don't mess with them. But you got to know your purpose. What is your purpose? My purpose when I talked to my teammate last weekend was for us to get better and for us to have an established form of communication and not be wasting, not to, for me to be wasting my time asking you for something on this walkie-talkie when you ain't even listening or don't intend to listen. Okay. So you gotta know your purpose, right? You gotta know your person. Okay. Again, is this professional? Is it personal? Uh, is it your boy? You know, uh, sometimes, uh, I don't know. I'm just kind of person. If I respect you, if I respect you, we got a relationship. It's a whole lot of stuff you could tell me. It's just a whole lot of stuff you could tell me. And it don't mean that I'm gonna always like it. But if I know again that you love me and you care about me and you're for my best interest, I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna listen. Um, and then if I disagree with it, then I will speak to that. Right? I'll speak to that. But you got to know your person. If you're in a relationship with a young lady, young man, or whatever, older lady, older man, you know what I'm saying. You got to know your person. If this person don't like to be talked to any kind of way, then you can't talk to them any kind of way and expect them to get the message. I don't care how right you think you are, right? I don't care how wrong you think they are or how wrong they may actually be. Some people, you can't talk to them like they got a tail. You know what I'm saying? And like I'm one of them people. You can't talk to me any kind of way. You know, um, you got not only your words, your body language, your eyes. Do you look a person in the eyes, or are you looking away, dismissing them? Are you receptive to get the feedback that they have to say? So when you critique somebody about something, you know, a lot of times, again, I'm going back to officiating only because it's like it's always present in my life, and so I'm in constant training all the time on different sports. But like the best uh evaluators, if they disagree with something that you did on the court, they're not just gonna come out there and just start dogging you out. They're gonna walk over to me and he's gonna say, Chris, about the third quarter, it was about 3 minutes left, this and this and this happened. What did you see on that? And so what that person does when they say, "What did you see?" They automatically giving you the benefit of the doubt and giving you an opportunity to answer for for perhaps what you saw, how that play developed, so you can it'll make sense to them how you did or didn't do whatever, right? And then after you explain it to them, and this has been both times this happened to me, both ways. I've explained it, and they would be like, "Okay, cool." And then they just dropped the subject. There ain't nothing else to it. They accepted what I had to say. I see what you're saying, dog. Rock on. Right on, brother. Other times where it would be like, okay, so in that case, when this happens, do this. Because thus and such over here, thus and such over here, the coach, the player, the situation, the intensity of the game, the tone of the players, right? So they may say these things that it didn't mean that it was dismissing me. It's just saying that, hey, here's something even better. And here's something that you didn't necessarily consider. So I've had that type of situation, right? Both ways. Uh had a situation last year where this is part of my personality, good, bad, and indifferent. When I go out there, man, seldom does anybody have more fun than I do when I go out there doing a high school game, uh, middle school game, whatever, right? Most of the time I'm having a ball. And I express that, you know what I mean? It's easy to see if you just see me from afar. And I'm very super cool and affable. But at the same time, you know, I'm still the kind of person too that if you say the wrong thing to me in the wrong tone at the wrong moment, that smile can go to a frown like this, and I could be like, oh, what you say? You know what I mean? And I could be like, bam, because I'm really into what I'm doing and that sort of thing. So again, take pride in what I do. So it's not that I'm beneath criticism. It's just, what did you say? How did you say it? In what situation you said it in? And so I said something back to the coach, and when we got to the locker room, one of my partners was like, I see exactly where you was going, dog. But next time with your tone, blah blah blah, because although I know what you were saying, because I was in that game with you, right? I knew all the plays and stuff that was going on. So your context was great. But those people out there, they might not know. They might not understand. And so, in order for me to become a better official, then I took that critique and I said, thank you. And it wasn't he don't know what the hell he's talking about. Thank you. Like that. No, it was like, thank you, because you can't see yourself, right? You see yourself out of your eyes, but you don't see yourself. You see other people, right? And since you can't see yourself and there's film on you that you're looking at, then it helps to have somebody to, advise it and look after you like that. So this person is an equal just like me, but he's a good official, very well respected. He's a good brother, even better brother. So therefore, hey man, you can talk to me. You can tell me that. You see what I'm saying? And that's going to make me better. So again, you're talking about your relationship. In that case, we had a good relationship, you know. Another thing, you give him critique and criticism. What's the subject matter? And do you have real knowledge and expertise in it? It's a whole lot of Monday morning quarterbacks, right? People be on, watching TV and these little sports shows and stuff, deciding who should have made what throw and how come he didn't catch the ball. And some of these things may seem, very elementary, but, if you ain't out there doing it, if you ain't never did it, if you don't know somebody intimately who's done it, you know what I mean, to where you can understand it, it's going to be very hard for you to critique it. It doesn't mean it has to be at the same level. There are plenty of coaches, who are really good coaches who never played the sport at the highest level. Still, they understand the game, blah, blah, blah. But that's an exception. That's an outlier simply because while they weren't the star player, they used that extra time and energy to study game concepts, offensive and defensive principles, and things of that nature. So, but if you ain't got no real expertise and you just popping off the mouth, you probably should just shut up. You know what I mean? It's a lot of stuff I don't know about. And if I don't know about it, then I'm just not going, what do I got to say about it? Really? Now we're talking about again evaluating your motives. What's your motivation? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? And then just maybe on some petty BS and maybe not be on some real, right? And then the last thing you have to ask is, do you, based on your person, do you have permission and is it necessary to have this conversation? You don't need to harp on everything. Ain't nobody got time to hear your critique on every little bitty thing, even if you're, even if you're, even if you think your motives are pure. Some stuff, man, you just gotta let it slide. I work with when I work with somebody who's new in the game, I may pick out I may pick out two or three things for them to work on the next time. Or, something might happen in the game and I feel like, okay, we can't let this happen again. So when I get a moment, I'll go over there and say something to them. And this other stuff, I could be like, you know what? Yeah, you could just tell because they're new, they hadn't had these experiences, seen these plays, so therefore they're going to react a certain way. A lot of times people are performing based on who they saw perform. So when I first started umpiring and refereeing and stuff, I had my mentors, and but before I had my mentors, I just had people I work with, and you see them do stuff, and you felt like that's the right thing to do, right? And then it was when I got my first real mentor in refereeing. Shout out Mr. Brother Ted Daniels, uh, who's in the Hall of Fame for officiating both in Illinois and West Virginia. Uh, so when he got a hold of me, all this stuff I learned from all these other people, from watching them and doing how they do, he was Xing all that stuff out. Let me tell you, he wasn't always sweet when he did it either, buddy. He crack your neck, Jack. You know what I'm saying? He crack your neck and he has some choice words that he can lay on you. You talking about an older black gentleman came up through, Jim Crow and stuff like that. So, he's a beautiful brother. Beautiful brother. He came to my 50th birthday party. Didn't have to do that. And I know he drove 40 miles to get there. You know what I'm saying? So, from where he lived. So, so that's our relationship. We became tight because he criticized me multiple times, tore my behind up until I became a better official. And he even told me, he was like, my goal for you is to be a state finals official. You know what I'm saying? He wanted that growth for me. And because I accepted his criticism, not only did he give me a lot of work. I remember the first time that I was truly happy, like because I had to work with him this one afternoon and I met him at the field. And normally he would tell me whether I was working the plate or the bases. He would tell me what we was gonna do, blah 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 blah. And then throughout the game, he would just give me instructions, this that, and the other. And then after the game, we would talk some more, kind of close it up. So one time I show up and I'm ready, okay, what we gonna do, boss? You know what I'm saying? And he was like, "Hey, what you want to do? What you want to do? C-Mac?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm gonna do this. I'll do this and you do that." And so we did the whole game. And every time we had a conversation about something between innings, between, one team going off, the other team going on before they bat, we would talk about stuff, but it was nothing about the game. There's nothing about the game. It would just be some random, it could be some funny, you know what I mean? It could be people watching and seeing somebody with a funny hat on. You know what I'm saying? We would talk about that kind of stuff, but we weren't talking about the game. And then I said to myself, then, okay, I passed. You know what I'm saying? Not that I'm a perfect official or anything like that, but he respects me enough now that he considers me his partner, not his, not just his protege. You know what I'm saying? I've earned the right by accepting his critique and criticism and improving and putting action behind it, not just saying, okay, I hear you, but actually putting the effort in to change bad habits and create new habits that I earned his respect, you know? And that meant more to me. See, because here's the thing about critique. Critique from the right person. You want that because the moment a person stop talking to you, it's over. It's over. Like I've been in relationships to where, I could talk to you, talk to you, talk to you, try, plead, beg, scream, snot, all of that. And then, but when you get to the point where it's like, you know what? Can't tell you nothing. You ain't gonna listen. So just stop. Just stop talking. Same way with coaches, like Coach Pat Summit, rest in peace. Like all the her great players, and I just got through reading Candace Parker's book, and just like when I read Shamika Holdsclaw or Cynthia Cooper, you know, those players, man, the coach would get on them the most because they see something in them that they can't even see in themselves. Like, I see you, Cole, so I'm gonna get on you, right? Just like Popovich did with Tim Duncan, right? It's not that you may be the coldest player on the team, but you ain't, all that a bag of chips in a 40 ounce just yet. So you need me because I'm from afar. I can see what you can't see because I can see everything. I can see what you're not looking at, because I'm over on the sideline. So, but when a coach looks at a player and says, "Hey, coach, am I good?" Yeah, yeah, you good. Yeah, go ahead, just keep doing what you was doing. That means that's a curse, man. That means they have given up. I got nothing else for you, bub. Carry on. So, so so yeah, yeah, you can't see yourself. You can't see yourself. So you can't always hear yourself. You don't always know how you're coming off, right? I remember me and my boys we used to play and hoop it up and Gus Macker and all of that kind of stuff. And sometimes some family members come out, and this is before like phones had cameras and stuff. So you might bring out the portable camera, the little thing you shoot with hook up to a VCR tape or whatever. And I remember thinking, like, as we was playing and stuff, and I was do a move, and I'd be like, man, I felt like magic on that boy. I finger roll that mug. I felt like Isaiah. You know what I'm saying? And then when you look at the film, you're like, yeah. Yeah, you was Magic, all right. You look like Magic Jimerson. You played like you made that move like the way you looked. Like in your mind, you thought it was Isaiah Thomas. It probably was Isaiah Goldstein. Because when you look at it on the film, that tell a tale. You know what I'm saying? Okay, yeah, I got it done. I got the job done, but I didn't look as nearly as pretty as I thought I did. So that's why you should know how to take criticism and stuff like that. Because again, again, the best thing you can do, man, is, again, good, bad, or indifferent, unless it's a very rare outliner type of situation. Man, just say please and thank you. Please and thank you. Because a person that don't want criticism is a person that don't want to get better. And I tell you what, the people that I don't want to work with that I told you about earlier, of course I didn't use no names, but people that I know I only want to see them coming is because you can't tell them nothing. It's not because they don't know, it's because they don't want to know. And that's what turns me off. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to work with a person who doesn't want to get better because how can I get better? How if I'm the coldest cat out there, I'm in the wrong building. You know what I'm saying? I'm in the wrong building. I need people around me who are colder than me in a given area so that I could take some of what they got, right? And then the same way, people who are coming up alongside me, underneath me, who may look to me for leadership, right? They're feeling the same way. They're not trying to be the coldest cat on the field, the coldest referee in the gym. You know what I'm saying? They trying to be the best they can be, and I want to get around people who can help me be better, right? By not only experiencing watching them, but also hearing their instructions. Okay. The person you don't want to be in this life is a person that can't nobody tell you nothing because that is the most unattractive, uninspiring, wouldn't want to be around you for nothing type of person to be. And that is just not a cool thing to be. So, with that, I will wrap this up. Learn how to give and receive criticism. Uh, know when not to, know when to shut your mouth and go on about your business. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Always check your motives, and then even another important part. If you give some criticism and you find out that person was right and you were wrong, damn it, be man or woman enough to say, you know what? Okay, cool. I bet. You know what I'm saying? I take that back. You know what I'm saying? You was on point. You was on point, Fife. You know what I'm saying? Be a mature enough person to say that, right? There's no room for ego in this thing, man. You know, and you could be telling the right person, you could be telling a person the right things for the wrong reasons or in the wrong spirit, and it'll never get received. Even if they like me and say, yeah, thank you, they still may be like, I ain't listening to the damn thing you say because I don't like the way you talk to me, And don't get me wrong, we gotta have thick skins, but I'm just saying, just because I need to have a thick skin don't mean that that gives a person the permission or the right to talk to you like you got to tell, especially if you don't have a relationship with that person, especially if you don't. So, as you ponder on this treaties and these things we just talked about here, don't forget to stop at Queso What and get you some of them gourmet, handmade to order. Everything's fresh, everything's marinated, everything's prepped. Quesos over at 3241-1 Rue Royale Street in St. Charles. Open twice a day, every day except Wednesdays and Sundays. So go on over there and check them out. And if you mention the For Real Though show, guess what? Guess what's gonna happen? You're gonna get yourself. I'm not even gonna tell you. I ain't gonna tell you. When you get up there, you tell Shantae you want the For Real Though show special. Tell Shantae you want the For Real Though show special and see what happens. Watch me. Watch me. Watch me work. And if you need to call, give her a call at 314-341-7734. They do catering. Lots of catering. Uh, and I think last I heard she has eight catering scheduled, eight catering scheduled between now and November. Business, all businesses. Okay. But whether you're getting the last minute family reunion thing in, you know, your your caterer bagged out on you or, wild out, and you're in that area, check out Queso What and see what's up. You'll like it. You'll enjoy it. So anyway, y'all stay safe. Uh, keep your heads up. I know we're living in some tough times. Make sure you're good to yourself. Make sure that you're speaking good things about yourself. Don't accentuate the negative. Accentuate the positive, but be truthful about everything, right? Be truthful about everything to yourself. Don't lie to yourself, but don't kick yourself, okay? Don't kick yourself. Be good to yourself. Stay safe. For real, though.